Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special podcast because I get to sit down with one of, I would say now, the OGs from back in the day that I remember growing up, and it's awesome to have him here on the show to sit down for, it's like I said, an hour or so, just kind of hanging out, chatting it up. We have Victor Lucas joining us. Victor, how we doing?
I'm doing great, John. Thank you so much for having me, man. Do you like to be called John, or do you prefer Spawn Wave? How do you like it?
John's fun. John's fine. It's
Right on.
the always the internet name, you know that goes. So just John's good.
Awesome. Well, I'm a big fan of you, and it's been really cool to watch you flourish and cover the news. You've become a real leading voice for what the heck is happening in this industry. That it's never boring, as you're discovering, is it?
It's definitely not boring.
It's
No, it's constant.
always insane. Always changes, man. It's crazy.
Things are always happening. It's a lot different than it was way back when. And I say way back when, I guess I'd say like 20, 23 years ago, 22 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
2003, 2004. When a little slower back then, but it's also a little quieter.
Well, it was. I wouldn't say it was slower. Because there were more companies that were smaller companies,
Mhm.
and there were tons of games. I mean, enough to have us build two television shows out of them, two regular television shows. So there was a lot to cover, a lot of studios. It wasn't as life and death as it is now. Now what I recognize is that um, little studios are fighting for attention, and sometimes they get it and it really works out for them. And then big studios are also fighting for attention, but they've always bet the whole thing on their project. And if it doesn't go and sustain them over, and this whole thing of like charting how many concurrent players are playing something, whether it's a single player or a multiplayer game, that was never done before, and the success being predicated on not just Metacritic scores, but now also how many people are playing something after a game launches, and a large part of the sort of passionate community out there is watching that stuff. It's life or death, and which is crazy, but I was always busy. I feel like I've always been busy, and I've always been trying to cover this industry and sort of stay afloat, sort of on these crazy waves. But now it feels a little more dire, like now it feels like if this doesn't work, the studio's out of business, layoffs, huge changes, people leaving the industry forever. And it wasn't like that 20 years ago.
Well, let me ask you before we get into some of the conversations. I ask everyone when they come on here, what's been the move recently? What's the game? What are the games you've been playing?
What's the game?
Yeah, what's the one?
Oh man. Oh my God. I review stuff every freaking week,
I was gonna say,
like,
I'm sure it's
yeah.
a long
So
list.
I'm currently playing Mio. I'm going to stream some Mio, which is the
Ooh.
new
Yep, I was playing the demo
Metroidvania
for
that,
that. I was playing the demo.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful game. Um, Jesus. Oh, what's the game? I mean, I want to go back to Metroid Prime 4. Like, I feel like it's being unfairly maligned. It's a really fun game.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed beating it and talking about it, reviewing it, and I've been thinking about it on a persistent basis. I just shot the Rocket and Ray Gun Awards, our award show, and we put that whole thing together. And so I took a look at the best of 2025, and Metroid was only up for one award, best art direction in our awards. And I don't think that paints the full picture on what a beautiful game that is. It's a great game, like holistically, not just a gorgeous game, but also it's really, really fun. It's just been compared to masterpieces, and
Yeah.
Metroid Prime Remastered was so good because it really shone a light on the uh, skill and the reach and the ambition of retro. Like they just crushed it right out of the gate, and it's a bit unfair, but also we waited so long for this freaking thing, and so the expectations were impossible, and so it didn't hit those expectations, but it's still a great, super fun game that's very different from everything else that's out there. So that's the thing that I guess if you're asking me what's the game, that's the thing that's percolating in my brain. I don't have
Okay.
time to go back and play it, but it's marvelous. And how about that Final Fantasy VII remake port to the Switch 2? Just incredible.
Yeah, it's actually very impressive, and people were actually buying it up physically. It was sold out everywhere around me, and I was
Yeah.
looking because it's a game key card. I was like, "That's interesting." So I went out and grabbed one finally, but there was one left at Walmart. None at Best Buy, none at Target. One at
Good for
Walmart, just
you.
randomly at the bottom of the case. It's like that's
Did you get the
wow.
cards in
People,
there?
No, it was one without the cards. So I didn't get
Oh
I didn't
shit!
get the Magic cards, Man.
Damn. Oh, that sucks.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to Neo 3. That's coming up, the demo. I was playing that, and you get something if you
Yep.
beat the demo. So I rolled through the demo fairly well. I mean, there's some sticking points in there with some bosses, but for the most part, it was fine. And then Dragon Quest 7 Reimagined, so I'm up against it immediately. And then Mario Tennis is out next week, so it's
Yes.
the
Yeah,
flurry of games is about to start.
I'll be reviewing both of those very soon. Dragon Quest, and that's next on deck. I had to kind of I didn't ask for any review codes or try to get ahead of things because I was busy with editing the Rocket and Ray Guns and getting all of that stuff together. It's a huge project. It always takes me a long time to make that awards piece. Even when we had a full TV team, it just takes a long time to go through all of that stuff. I feel like I love the Game Awards. They're incredible. They're an incredible pageant, but I feel like they come on too soon. I know that it winds up the year really well, but I mean, I play a lot of stuff, and I just don't know how all these judges can get through all of that assessment by the end of the year. And then all of those December games are always missed, and there were several December games like Marvel Cosmic Invasion, Metroid Prime 4, Octopath Traveler 0, and then one of the buttes of 2025 is Terminator 2D No Fate. They all launched in December. And so all of the judging and assessment that happened to get those awards out in time. And Jeff's a bud. I've known him forever. I love the guy, and I love the awards. But it just feels like the thing that really burns me is like Indiana Jones didn't win Game of the Year in 2024, and that was the best game of 2024. Without
that was
question.
a really good game. It was kind of a shame because then we come back around and it's not at all fresh on anyone's mind. It'd be so far removed that I'd go, man, maybe I should replay this just to see, just to double check.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the way it is with, ads and getting the best return. Is I understand that whole side of the business, and that's why they do it in December,
It's so important.
It's tough. It is. It's tough to make it all work out.
The other thing that the industry is kind of facing, though, with all of these ads for stuff that's coming up is like we are already inundated with so much to play. And I feel like you talk about retro stuff all the time, and I do too. And it's, now it's very present in my life because we play all of these classic episodes, and so I'm talking about classic content all the time, and I'm streaming retro stuff. I've relaunched Buried Treasures in my content, and so I'm always thinking about how fun some of these classic games are, and I go to them all the time. And so not only are we in an era where there's lots of great development and lots of really cool games fighting for our attention that are brand new, but also these classic games, and NSO is terrific, and some of the classic stuff that's on PlayStation and Xbox, all of that stuff is really good. But we're also stacked with great retro stuff that's worth revisiting or playing for the first time if you never had. And so this constant growth, I really feel like the games industry is kind of due for a reckoning with how much time some of this stuff takes, how big the budgets are, how expensive they are. People just are having a tough time fitting games into their life, trying to schedule where this is going to fit. And I know that's the challenge. The big boss fight is time. Like we just don't have enough. Nobody has the time to hit all this.
No,
Even
we're
us.
faced with so many.
Talk about this stuff every day, and we don't have the time to play all this
we're
stuff.
faced with so many options, and the backlog never really shrinks for people because every one game you may play through, there's 10 more on the other side waiting for you, and 9 of them go into the backlog if you pick one. So it's just a never-ending cycle. And now I'm thinking about how the Xbox 360 would be considered retro. So you think of that entire library because the 360 is 20 years old. PS3 is going to be 20 years old soon. And you go, well, that's got to be retro. I think we've discussed before what like how far removed you have to be from a system's launch for it to be considered retro. Some have said 15 years, some have said 20. Well, either one fits in here. And it's weird because it has an HDMI port. The PS3 has Blu-ray, and now that's retro. And so that's a large lot. That generation had entire franchises starting up. We had multiple entries for different ones back to back to back. Like you had 3 Uncharted games on the PS3. Just like the mainline ones, numbered ones. And you just think about how many games from that era have stacked up. And then we get 19,000 games that come out on Steam last year alone. So it's just you're right. It's tough to keep up with everything, and it's a big fight for time. I mean, what's kind of I would say a user base or audience that's it's kind of leveled off. I think for the most part, people
Mhm.
have figured out if they're going to play on console, if they're going to play on mobile phone or play on PC. So we see the chart that was going up pretty well for a while there, kind of just flatlining, and everyone's just sort of in their space with their games, but the games keep going up, and it's just more and more of them come out all the time.
It's because the true believers in this space, we recognize, we understand that this medium is it's more satisfying than anything else. Like,
Mhm.
we are also addicted to shows and movies and other kinds of content, and we dig them. I do. I cover that stuff, but there's nothing that can touch video games. They're just an incredible means of communication and expression and immersion for us. And when they hit, they're amazing. And one of my issues with the industry is that we kind of I think the reason why things are plateauing is because there's been some really erroneous moves in the industry that have chased some trends like live service and free to play, where we had some really amazing breakout hit success stories like Fortnite and World of Warcraft, and there's a nice collection of about 20 different titles out there that just really showed the marketplace that, man, this could really bring home tons and tons of money and keep companies going for a long time.
Mhm.
And people try it all the time. But I just see there's two things that happen with these live service things. They create community, which is really a fun benefit to playing these games. So you can create these kinds of relationships with people, but they absolutely eat into that time. And so not only are you um, you're spending a lot of time to kind of keep going into that space and that connection with people, which is fun, but you're also now removing from the equation the idea that you have time to look at anything else. And I feel like so much of the industry has pivoted in this direction, and it's infiltrated all aspects of gaming. And so single player games are being positioned like that. And they go on too freaking long. They just go
Yeah.
on too long, and they just try to sell you little bits and pieces, these little morsels to keep you there forever. And so consequently, people aren't looking up ever from their games. And so I think that automatically it puts a ceiling on how far these things are going to go. And I think what we were witnessing with the PS2 and 360 era, or PS3, PS2, PS3,
Mhm.
360, Xbox, GameCube a little bit, although that wasn't a huge success. The Wii for sure. Um, was that it was appealing to a lot of people, and they saw these platforms as an access point to lots and lots of entertainment. And now a lot of these platforms, they witness around them and their younger players, and I'm not going to put any kind of brackets around exactly who is playing all this stuff, and I'm not trying to throw shade at the content because there's great content out there, but they see these platforms as just one experience. That's the Fortnite machine that we have in our
Yep.
house, and our people just play that all the time. And 20 years ago, it was no, we'd bounce from here, we'd bounce to that, we'd play this 7 out of 10 game, we'd play this 10 out of 10 game. It was very easy to position our programming, our television programming, talking about this stuff to an audience that may not know all aspects of this medium, and show them why they should care. And right now, it's become trickier, I think, to communicate outside of the space. Also, media is in complete, ruins right now.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that there's any kind of mainstream access point for anything anymore. Like, everybody is fighting for attention around all of this stuff. So all of that comes into play for sure. But I also think that the industry does it to itself a little bit. They're we used to have these silly things where we would cover a game that was multi-platform, but we'd have to blur. Like, this was mostly for the documentaries that we would shoot, but we'd have to blur out the fact that it would be on a competing machine. We'd have to
Oh,
blur controllers or something like that.
interesting.
And so there was this, implied kind of idea that it only existed in one thing. Well, now that applies to one game. This one game is the only thing that exists in video games right now, and this is the only thing you're gonna pay attention to. And it's such a huge hit that this is the only thing you need to look at. Whether that's Animal Crossing or Pokemon Go or Fortnite or whatever. And I think the industry is at its best when it really understands that all of a rising tide lifts all the boats, and all of it is valuable. And developers should be pointing out stuff that they've been playing, and acknowledging that coexistence is our way to bringing more people in. The movie industry has understood that for decades and decades, 50, 60 years. They don't but release dates right up against each other. They slide things around. They celebrate when one studio was winning. Sure, there's competition, but I don't know. The video game industry, right from the console war BS of the 80s to now, it just feels so much like it's trying to kill itself through its success. You know what I'm saying?
It's interesting because you named Fortnite. So we would talk about back then, I'm gonna play Xbox, I'm gonna play PlayStation, or I'm playing Nintendo. Now it really is, if you listen to a lot of especially the younger generation coming up, they go, I'm gonna play Fortnite. And it's just kind of implied that you'll be able to jump on and play. Yeah, exactly. It's become a platform. That's become a platform. I've noticed it with Minecraft. That's become a platform. That's what they say. Roblox. They just name the game and assume that whatever you have is going to work with what they have, and it's just because Fortnite is the game. It's the platform. That's what we're playing. So you're right. It's very different than, so like for you, you're so interesting because you do remember way back then, because you were there when gaming first started to get into the mainstream. And this is a time
that's how I pitched the shows, bro. I mean, that's what I talked to broadcasters about. I was expressing to them that magazines aren't enough. This is a massive business. It's already making billions of dollars. It's going to make multiple billions more. And people are emotionally connected to this, and they have no outlets for this stuff. Let's go. Right. Let's start making some material around this.
That was exactly how it was back then. So for me, when I was, I would have been, this was like late 90s, with the magazine being the primary thing that would get information around, and word of mouth. So I would have been 11 or 12 at that time. And so then going into at middle school, then going into high school, we were starting to hear.
Keep rubbing it in, John. Just keep going. Just keep talking about how much younger than you are than me.
There were rumors going around, because I was online at a very early age. Okay. So believe it or not, word started to go around on the old internet forums that there was going to be a video game dedicated cable channel. And we were like, no, they can't do that. Really? If I come home from school, I can, instead of watching, because I would watch like Toonami and stuff back then when I'd come home, like Dragon Ball Reboot, all that stuff was just like a 3-hour block. So I'm just sitting there watching that, playing Pokemon on the Game Boy or something like that. But word started to go around.
That sounds perfect, John. Really? I know, right? I mean, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, take us back.
Now it's freaking reels.
But we started to get word on forums that there was going to be a dedicated video game channel. And it was so exciting because up to that point, and I'm sure there are many viewers who this sounds really weird to, it was actually very, very almost shunned a bit to be playing video games like that. Like a lot back then in my, like when I was in like school and stuff, because there was peer pressure of don't be a nerd and that kind of thing, right? So because gaming wasn't viewed as a mainstream accepted thing then. And then here comes, I think it would have been Comcast at the time. So we had Comcast. They come in and I guess make a serious bid on this thing, and they pushed G4 TV, and there were commercials for it leading up to a channel launch. And I can't remember. Maybe Cartoon Network did that at one point, where they were launching a new channel for it and they were advertising it on another channel. But I remember G4 TV was such a big thing that they were pushing. And man, I was hooked. I that was my channel. It was channel, I think 138. And I'd come home and that would just be on like repeat. It was just always on. It was incredible.
Incredible, wasn't it? Yeah. No, it was wild, man. It was wild to be there and witness the birth of that. Obviously, we had been running for a bunch of years before it launched, and had been fighting the fight to try to find partners for the television show and stuff. But the dedicated network concept that Charles Hirschhorn had, and I'm sure he had a small group of people. Vinny Lombardo was uh, head of programming. He was ex MTV. There was an interesting collision of MTV people and traditional video game journalists, like Tom Russo from Next Gen magazine was working at G4, and Tina Kovaleski, who was at Sony, working on the PlayStation brand, worked over at G4. Ted Rugaleski, I believe is his last name. That's how you pronounce it. He's at Nintendo now. He was working there, and just this really interesting group of people that believed in this idea. And EP was an ingredient in that. Like we helped to kind of show that, hell yes, there was an appetite for this, and this is a really interesting facet of culture that should be covered and should be discussed. And they had the wherewithal and the budget and the branding sort of know-how to pull it all together. And it was extraordinary to be there, to be on the outside. What's interesting about our relationship with G4, like we were never owned by G4. We were always independent from them, but we produced more for G4 than anybody, probably anybody even in-house, because we did content for the whole run. Even when G4 was scaling back, and when they had acquired, like from the gaming stuff, and they acquired Tech TV, we were still working with them. We were still delivering EP, even if it was just on their website. We were still delivering them content all the way along. And of course, in Canada, we became the backbone of G4 in Canada, because we were Canadian productions, and we had a great relationship with the company that was running the show, or running the network in Canada, called Rogers. But to watch it change and grow, and I'll tell you something, one of the major it was this really interesting catalyst for massive growth when they acquired Tech TV. But it also, and I remember, I think I can say, Vinny, we were at Comic-Con, and I had convinced G4 that they should be at Comic-Con. I said, look, E3 is central to what EP is, but Comic-Con is EP. EP is covering games in the wider culture of pop culture out there. How it integrates with movies and TV shows. It's great for television. And I convinced Vinny and eventually the G4 cameras to start going to Comic-Con, and showed them that it was really cool. But I remember at one of these Comic-Cons where I think Vinny came down and joined us and was scouting out what was going on down there. He said, it's amazing now, because they were in 10 million homes to begin with. It's incredible now, but things are going to change when we start to get rated, when we get ratings information, because that's when all the advertising gets a lot more hardcore. And he was absolutely right. It got really treacherous, as soon as it went into more homes. And through that Tech TV acquisition or merger, however they framed it, it put a lot more eyeballs on them. I went to some of those. They have these TV festivals. I went to one or two of those and talked about our shows and stuff in front of the critics and stuff. And there was this major move in that era to sexualize some of the content a little bit. Like there were sexy women and some skits and stuff like that. And I remember one of the TV presentations, it got a little confrontational about some of that stuff. And our content wasn't like that. We were a little tongue in cheek with that, with our hardware girls in Judgment Day, but that was always done from like, this is so, ludicrous that there is this kind of stuff on TV. Let's have some fun and just get overly playful with it. That's how we cast Evangeline Lilly as one of our hardware models to begin with. But it actually worked, because we were talking about video game controllers and stuff, and it would have been a lot more boring for television if it was just a shot of a controller. It was a lot more interesting to have an attractive human being hold up this stuff and play around with all of this stuff. And there was too much of Tommy in me back then anyways. But it was interesting to see some of the criticism ramp up around that OG G4 as the profile started to rise, because you're right, in the early days it was pretty beatific, you know. And when I would visit the network, and because we didn't get the network in Canada, but when I'd visit the studios in Los Angeles and see it on the screen, and they would go from these little interstitials of people speed running a game, and you know, there's a little hit on Tomb Raider, and then we go to one of the shows. I think one of the challenges with G4 that definitely was a part of the original network, and then when it was they attempted to relaunch it again, is that, and this happens with cable period, but it's, if you're not super into the content, and I understand that these networks are engineered to appeal to people that are super into the content, but if you're not super into the content, it's tough to delineate, it's tough to discriminate about what's the beginning of one show and the end of another. And I think that's really important when you're programming this stuff. You know, I think you really need to think that through, and there was too much homogeny in the way that stuff looked, you know. And I know part of the challenge, honestly, like our show was a kind of a really cool Entertainment Tonight kind of catch-all, you know, just the EP mothership, and we were everywhere. You know, we were on location all over the place, and the only way to make the network kind of look a little more like it was out in the world is to replicate that over and over again. And they didn't. They chose to do a lot more studio-based stuff, a little bit of out in the world stuff. Attack of the Show got a lot more outrageous and stuff.
That was so
Uh,
interesting though. You're right with the so the thing that I remember quite fondly was the idea that G4 was working to televise E3 back then,
yeah,
and big events like you
yeah,
mentioned Comic-Con and stuff, because when we were hearing about a lot of the info coming out of E3, there was kind of a time delay because we'd have to wait for
right,
publications to write about it, or funny enough, people on some of those old forums would go to E3, come back,
yeah,
and then type up massive forum posts as to what they saw. And then it was kind of like we had to take their word for it a bit, but you would get old videos of PlayStation announcing the price in front of
yes,
Sega. And you get those occasionally, or you would see the stage where Nintendo announces like a big new Zelda game or something, and it was all exciting and the crowd was going crazy. But those were few and far between. But then G4 did make it look much more professional, but it still kind of felt like, honestly, nerds or gamers were kind of running things. For there was a legendary period, I want to say it was at least 3 years when it first
yeah,
showed up to then, and it was just like hit, like all the shows were
they were
interesting in
cool.
some way. They're all
Yeah,
good. Everything
Portal,
was good.
and yeah, I know, Icons, and yeah, there
Oh,
were, it
Icons was
was
great.
real, yeah, really, really cool. But I also think that it was so inside baseball that it didn't really peel out. And I feel like the only way that they could have done that is to invest more than they had budget wise and make a whole bunch
Sure.
of EPs, which would have been everywhere. But then that would have been the same result. It would have all looked the same. So it's a challenge. Like building a network is a challenge. Honestly, I think the way to do it is to have counter programming that really fits. And they tried to do that later on as they were pivoting with Cops and Ninja Warrior and all the other stuff. But it felt a little incongruous, and the tech stuff felt a little incongruous. So it's tough, man, and that's why, you know, there have been some possible opportunities for me to take more of an executive, you know, oversight kind of role on some more of that type of programming. It didn't work out, but uh, I am kind of glad that it didn't, because I know how hard it is to run all of these different facets. I've certainly thought of ways that you could launch more of this style of programming, and I think the secret is to, uh, just like EP, the secret to its longevity, like you never could tell what was coming up next, you know? And that's kind of
Right.
how I make content now, although with a lot less budget and a lot less resource. But you just don't know what. And I mean, frick, I posted, interviewed Ben Kingsley last week, you know, like I didn't know that was going to happen, but he's in the Wonder Man show. And to make content like that is so exhilarating. And I
Mhm.
don't know if people are going to watch it or how it's going to go, but it's just fun. And then I think when you watch EP back then and even the new stuff now, it's like, holy shit, what are we like? What, how, why is this happening now? You know, why is he interviewing this person? Why is, and I don't know. I find that fun to make and fun to watch. And it's been cool to watch the classic stuff, and because that's my life, right? I was there for
Mhm.
all
Oh
those
yeah.
things, but it was happening, and when when you're busy making something, you don't have time to like think about what's going on. You're just like getting the stuff, and so it's weird to go back and to see the I don't know, the goofy adventures that we were on, and how much fun we were having, and it's been cool. And
Well,
I'm happy to say it still feels exactly the same. I just don't have a
okay.
whole TV team around me.
Well, that's the thing though. If you think about that, because you don't have a whole TV team around you, you can be more agile with a lot of these
Yep.
decisions based around your content. And you know what? It kind of makes sense now because you said earlier in the show, hey, you know what? The way things move online, it's light speed.
Yeah.
Constantly things are hitting. And
Yes.
it would actually be kind of hard for, I think, a TV crew that's trying to plan everything out, get everything
Yes.
vetted, go through.
Yep.
I'm sure I can't imagine how many people above you have to look at what you're about to put on TV and
Actually, we were cool, man.
oh yeah?
John,
Okay.
I gotta tell you, like all of the partners, G4 and
Mhm.
Discovery, and we were on the Reels network for a while, and our Canadian networks, and we were on an Australian network. Everybody was like, "Yep, you guys know what you're doing. Just keep it."
Okay.
And it wasn't. It was like that all the way. At first, it was because nobody understood what the hell we were doing, and
Mhm.
like we were one of one. And then it was like, well, you've been doing it for a while, and you clearly have these relationships, and you've learned a lot of stuff, and especially as we went daily, it was like, but it was really cool. Like we definitely got feedback. We definitely learned a lot when we were on Discovery. We'd already done 5 seasons of EP, and so everything was just so shorthand for us. And we were delivering shows, and they're like, "We don't know what the hell you're saying. We don't know what this guy that you just interviewed just talked about. We don't understand the technology. Please slow down. Please explain some of what everybody is talking about and how this is the context of it all." And that was a really big eye-opening thing, because that was like, hold on, okay, the job here isn't just to entertain everybody that kind of knows something here. The job is to bring people in. We want to onboard people into this space. We want more people to care about the content and then play games. And through that, better and more interesting ideas and cooler entertainment is going to get made. And there will be a lot more, I don't know, cross referencing and filmmakers digging the game stuff and the game stuff, which was always my dream with the content, was like, let's have this. I'm huge on that creative ambition, like just the idea that people have that spark and they get out of bed and they try to make the world more fun by their art. That's it, man. That's so pure. Like I just love that. That's what drives people to go and contribute. It doesn't always work out. There's a million reasons why it doesn't, but it's really fun to capture all that
Yeah,
stuff.
you
But
got to take that chance. You got to take that
got to
chance.
take that chance. Yeah, yeah. But we learned how to slow it down a little bit, and as we rolled into the Daily Show, that was invaluable to learn, because then we were suddenly, in some time slots we were up right against Entertainment Tonight or Access Hollywood or TMZ or whatever, and we were rating as good as those guys. It was a different age in TV, but people that didn't know anything about video games, didn't know who the hell I was, didn't know EP, whatever, they would click on the channels in these markets and they would watch our cool show with the most expensive B-roll in the history of
Yeah.
humankind. We'd be running all these incredible movie clips and game clips, and it cost so much money to make all of this beautiful art. And we were talking to the people that were making them, and they would stick. And our second 15 minutes was bigger than our first 15 minutes, which was a sign that people were enjoying the material. But yeah, we learned a lot around all of that stuff. And G4 was so important, and I knew that if it was going to run into difficulties that first time, that it was going to be a bad sign for media. I remember that there was some jealousy, I think, from some of the website people and some of the magazine people about access to G4. And I mean, I got that right in the early days of EP. I remember we
Oh.
were shooting an interview at Nintendo, and I was interviewing Peter Main, and I could hear some editor from across the and I know who it is, but I'm not going to call him out. He's a great guy. But he said, "Who the f are those guys?" Because we had Primo access and Primo like first spot with Peter Main, who was the top dog at Nintendo of America back then, and because we were on TV, and so that resonated. That was something that happened, and I remember people kind of wishing for the failure of G4. And I turned to a couple of journalists at one point and I said, you know what, if G4 fails, that's going to be a terrible sign for all of media that this doesn't work. And it's going to mean a lot of layoffs and it's going to mean a lot of changes. So I'd be careful what you're wishing for. Maybe you're not happy with some of the programming choices, but this is a vertical. This is a brand that is propping up interest in this space, which is going to make all coverage of this space a little bit more prominent and important for people. And if you are wishing ill on this, you are just, you're manifesting your own challenges. And that's exactly what happened,
Yeah, I think it was extremely important for video games and G4 to get on TV.
Yes.
Back then, it legitimized the space, and I will say it definitely inspired me to do more of this as I got older and YouTube, the opportunity popped up. So I imagine there are many people that also watch G4 and were somewhat inspired to talk about it in podcast form, in different videos, retrospectives, whatever. There's probably some show on G4 that they watched and were like, yeah, I want to do that too. And I mean, you look at the space now on social media, on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, anywhere, there are tons of people making content about video games every single day. And it's now it's the biggest industry in entertainment. It's video games. So I do look back at that time and see G4 as like a pivotal moment in gaming history for that, just the exposure of the industry and getting people interested.
I gotta say, that is a major failing on the part of the video game industry to let this, not just because we were on it, but because G4 was becoming this brand that was synonymous with all of these events that were happening in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And the games industry's apathy just let it go, And the analogy is, if ESPN struggles financially or to reach an audience or whatever, I don't see the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, and the NHL just giving up on them and finding a way to support them and helping them to pivot. And the industry had its own ESPN for all intents and purposes, and it hasn't been replicated. People have tried it, and mostly because G4 didn't work. Anybody that's tried to get it going again has been met with, a real sense of like, no, it's impossible. That had Comcast money and it didn't work before. It could have worked if the games industry had said, look, I know your numbers aren't there, but I'm going to talk with my media buyers and we're going to find a way to make sure that you get some budget and some funding. And there could have been some pivots and some changes in terms of budget allocation and the cost of content and also delivery of the material. Like, one of the challenging things that they ran into in the TV space, and we ran into delivering our shows too, was that the broadcasters were really wary of YouTube and had contracts in place. Like, we had one where we were making a daily show, but we couldn't put it on YouTube for a week after it had aired. And every day was fresh. Every day was about the day. And so, it was pretty hard for us to kind of put a show on our own website and YouTube, and try to maintain that currency, try to maintain that kind of cadence that you had to check in there all the time because it was from a week old. But the broadcasters at that time were thinking, look, we need to bring people to this platform. We need to bring people to this platform. And that is not the world anymore at all. And G4 could have been there pivoting with all of this stuff, delivering to digital. And they were trying, and at the time there were, major upset copyright infringement stuff going on between Universal and was it Comcast? Viacom and YouTube. There were lawsuits and stuff like that. And so, like, a lot of eyes on how this stuff was going to be served up online. But the industry should have helped to protect that brand. because it's really hard to rebuild that thing. And a lot of people have intimated that they wanted it to go. You know, the G4 relaunch was, I mean, I was talking with them,
Mhm.
and it was really poorly thought out, you know. And part of the challenge was also that it was in the pandemic as well. But they really needed. I hate to sound like I'm just banging my own drum, but they needed an EP. They needed somebody that was going to go and visit everything. That would have been impossible to do during the pandemic.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
right? It would have. But what they ended up doing was just making Twitch for television, and we don't need Twitch for television. Everybody's got Twitch. You know, like a fancier studio does not make a better show. You know, a better show is access and really cool information and authentic conversations and connection. You know, and they were meeting that in some ways, but they were also replicating what was already working for lots of different, you know, creators out there. And
Yep.
they were also hiring people that were already successful in their own way, as their own brand, as their own, you know, creator. And they should have said, no, we're going to cultivate this new kind of identity and this new group of people, and we're going to build it with some anyways.
I like the
It
idea
didn't
of
work.
getting people who weren't as, it's almost like when you see a movie pop up and it's an actor or actress that you know very well, and they're playing Spider-Man or Link or something, and you're like, oh well, now I'm just gonna see Tom Holland instead, you know, when I'm
Yeah.
watching this. But
Yes.
it was kind of like that with the G4 attempted relaunch in
100%.
2021. I think it would
Yeah.
have made more sense to find almost unknowns, and that, you know,
Yes.
you scout them talent and everything, and you understand that they're into games and they know the
No.
industry well and stuff. Because there are many people out there who I'm sure are looking for that opportunity, and
Dude,
there people
what
start YouTube channels every day, you know.
Yeah, and what broadcasters and content company um, investors and creators, people that want to create the background and have a media brand, need to understand that it's not about platform at all anymore. Nobody's got an allegiance to where they watch or listen to anything anymore, and the attitude of, and I've run into this again and again, you know, and I've had broadcasters, like executives, because I've had discussions around a relaunch or whatever with Electric Playground, and I've had broadcasters say, "Why would you want to be on television? You have such a cool website, you know, you have a cool YouTube channel, and you can do whatever you want." And so there's this real kind of disconnect about, look, the building this and getting it everywhere is how you do it. You know,
Mhm.
that's what you need to be thinking about, especially with regards to information. And it's not about like the primo luxury, beautiful branding of a platform. It's about the content. It's about the quality of the people and the connection and the communication and the conversations. That's what's going to drive it. And that stuff's happening independent of any platforms every single day.
Yep.
And that's what G4, I mean, I'm listening to the Josh Safdie, uh, and I understand there's some issues with him. I don't know all of that stuff, but he's being interviewed by Conan O'Brien in a recent podcast that I've been listening to. And I don't know if you've seen Marty Supreme, but one of the ultimate things about that film is that he and the Safdie brothers in general have a really fantastic casting approach. And we saw this with Andor as well, like just the idea of populating your stories with authenticity and people that are, you know, from a different world that we don't see all the time
Mhm.
is so important, you know. And there it is, exemplified in these award-winning productions. And when you're building and you have the resources, they had all the budget for this beautiful set and all this background, but then they chose to also blow their budget and work with agents to find people that were known, and nobody. Anyways,
I think there is a level of, as you mentioned, authenticity with like YouTube and other things now, where there are people who are legitimately into video games or into pop culture or whatever, and
yes,
you'll
yeah,
you'll
like
turn
you.
the video, sure, yeah, sure, like yeah, but you'll turn the video on, and you'll see your background where you have, you know, a ton of figures, arcade cabinets, and you go, I don't think he bought that last week to set up like for his set. He's probably been collecting those for a while, and
I
you know what I
have,
mean.
yeah.
It's not the sense of the corporate person coming in and just dressing up the whole
I
background. And
bought that Vectrex in 1984 or something like that.
Right, but, like, you get the idea of, oh, there's like a GameCube down here somewhere, and there's like a Super Nintendo Junior, and there's a whole wall of
Yeah.
games over here I don't wanna ever put on camera, but it's like, people joke about the YouTuber with all the games on the wall behind them, but you think about it and you go, "Well, okay, I guess they do collect games then. I guess they are into this
Yeah.
stuff,"
Yeah.
So I think there is a level of authenticity, and, of course, you'll see that same person consistently on that channel, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, well, I guess they're not necessarily faking all of this. They must actually be into the space. They're interested." So let's hear what they say, you know?
The only thing that, because I've come from that space, is, and it was a dream come true. It was a wild, y- you know fantasy that I had, that maybe one day I'd be able to get a TV show on the air. But that collaboration and that sharing of ideas and that constant surprise, because it wasn't just where we went and who we talked to, it's who we as a team worked with, and all of the great contributions that all of this blending of people provided. I mean, that was just a gift, man. It really was. And I feel like the YouTube environment and the Twitch environment is an amazing mirror for where we are as a society right now. We are all isolated, and we're all looking through our little black mirrors, and we're projecting to our cameras. And it's just a lot of that. And I feel like I was very, very privileged to have a collection of people that I collaborated with every single day. And we built stuff that I could not have built alone. And so, yes, the authenticity is out there. Great content, great conversations, great uh, observations, and great material. But I feel like we're missing a little bit of
It's
that human to human connection.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because there was something else I was gonna bring up because I mentioned G4 TV bringing E3 into everyone's living room, and now E3 is gone, and it's been
Yeah,
gone for a while. People forget
another mistake for
it's
the video game industry.
it's been a while since we had, like,
Yeah,
a legitimate E3. I think the last one, what was that, 2019?
yeah,
Yeah, so if you think about it that way, coming up, this summer will be 7 years. Well, last time they did E3 in person because they tried to keep it going with, like, virtual E3s and stuff. The last physical one, which is
yeah.
really what E3 is about, is the
Yes,
physical aspect of people coming together in the industry and, yes, having backroom meetings and stuff, but it's the idea of it being a trade show first, and it did turn into a fan event over time because I'm sure
yeah.
they wanted to make more money off of it.
Did
But
did you
the
make it to
original
any of them?
I never got to go to an E3.
Oh, bro,
Yeah, I
that
know.
sucks.
And I was always, I always did the thing where I'm like, I'll go next year. It'll be around. It'll be here. And then it went
Yeah,
away. And I was like, well, I probably should have gone.
yeah. I grew to resent them because they were a ton of work. And
Yeah.
I was discovering that, at first, and when we had less money to make seasons, it was an incredibly important trip for us to go and collect interviews and get all of the stuff that we could filter in across a whole season of the show. Um, but then, as we started to get the budget to go daily, and we had teams in different cities, and we were having this kind of regular, um, you know, daily kind of connection with different studios and all that stuff, I felt like E3 as a content base was a little bit less of an important visit for us that way. I felt like there was so much of the same interview happening because everybody had channels, and everybody was getting that E3 interview. But what made EP special was that, no, we went to these studios, no matter where they were, and those were always preferred. But E3 did provide fantastic content. But what it really provided was that face to face check in,
Yep.
and it was incredible because I went to the 25 of them, right? I went to
Oh,
all of
wow.
them, and it was like going to school, but 5 times what you would think of for high school, and so literally grew up with 1,000 people that are my friends across the industry, and I would see them all the time, and they're all, I'm connected to them across social media and stuff like that, and so I see their lives, but I don't get to see them in human form and face to face enough, and I really miss E3 for that. And Jeff's done an again. I'm so impressed and proud of him because he's done an amazing job with Summer Game Fest. And in some ways, I enjoy that more because it's a little more chill, and it's personal and a little more sophisticated and not quite so exhausting as E3 was. But I don't know. Some of that exhaustion is what I miss too. Just like
That
the
spectacle,
yeah,
of
and
the video game industry all at once.
totally, and all of those live press conferences and stuff. Like it really changed when I think Nintendo was the first to do it, where they just press play on their video, and they're making great videos. I love them. They're very cool.
Mhm.
But man, we're gonna crave mistakes. We're gonna crave human error.
Oh,
We're gonna
yeah.
crave people screwing up. Because we're about to enter everything being so inauthentic and so perfect that it's gonna suck. It's just gonna suck.
I've
It's just
almost
gonna
thought
be
about
so.
on purpose leaving in some gaffes on different video.
Do
I've
it.
actually thought about that. I'm like, I wonder if
Do it.
that would just
Yeah.
feel different from everyone else if I just randomly left a mistake in here and
I
there.
catch that in YouTube videos all the time. I think Sean, what's his channel's name?
RGT, yeah, he was kind of
Yeah,
known for that.
yeah, and it's kind of charming because we're all racing to get this material together, and I mean they're bloopers, right? They're basically bloopers.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, I think God, this aspiration now that communicators like yourself and me, and like I've been doing this forever, so yeah, man, I have this idea in my head. Like I started out as like young Luke Skywalker with my EP microphone lightsaber, and now I'm fully Obi-Wan. I've been doing this for so goddamn long, but I just feel like the same thing about creative people building art for us can be said for people that get up and build their channels and build their community and get out there and try to provide a voice and a connection for people. I have mad respect for that, and I love the fact that modern technology has made that so accessible for all of us. It's incredible.
yeah, it is just being able to record, share some opinions on something, even some news on something, and then have it in front of people an hour later. It's incredible. I would have never guessed that way back when, like I said, 20
Yeah.
some odd years ago, when we were dealing with dial up, and all of a sudden now, videos that are 4K can be just thrown online in a few minutes for people. It's wild stuff. It is. But that same technology, there's of course a lot of concern now, as you mentioned, inauthentic
Mhm.
content and things appearing online. It's getting harder and harder to tell what's even real on social media anymore.
I know.
So one of the things that people bring up is the idea that AI could replace people, commentators in the space. And I just the as you mentioned, the human touch, the human nature to the whole thing.
Yeah.
It to me, I actually think that's quite necessary in commentator space. Anything where there's real presentation and real kind of human thought or emotion behind it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like a very far-fetched idea to me. I guess it could happen, but it's just not anytime soon in my mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that is definitely evident in the video game space is because we have moved away from personal access, whether they're events or E3s, or I mean, there's PAX and stuff, and I encourage everybody to take advantage of the cons that they have access to
Mhm.
and go. And it's not necessarily about the spend of it all, because a lot of the prices are jacked up, and maybe you don't want to spend $150 for an autograph or whatever. But it's honestly just to be around people that are like-minded and to see that joy that everybody has. I remember my first times going to Comic-Con in San Diego, and I just felt like I came home. I felt like I was with my people. I felt like I felt so seen and so much a part of this group, and it was really lovely. It was really something very, very powerful. And I feel like our society is so engineered now to just let us click things and things come to us, and we never have to move. And that's why I endeavor to get out of my freaking basement and go and see a movie in a theater and talk about that experience and encourage people to go. I know less young people are thinking about that. Go to arcades, go to comic book stores, find some local video game stores and support physical purchasing. I
Mhm.
think honestly, a part of I mean, the failure of G4, huge mistake for video game industry, huge, just enormous. Just that having that go-to voice funded by a major conglomerate. Like there's this huge battle right now in media between Disney or between Discovery and Warner Brothers and Netflix and Paramount, and Comcast is in there. And when this deal goes through, Disney might be in sort of acquisition space by Apple or whatever, or Comcast. And Comcast is in there. And so it's one of these giant behemoth organizations, and they had a video game vertical that they were getting out there. And what the video game industry really should have done was support all that. That's a failure. E3 going away, major failure. I was like the Cannes Film Festival for the video game industry, gone. And then I think live service and so much focus on that has been a real problem in the games industry. I think it's been very good for the people that have like won the Willy Wonka golden ticket, and they're doing great, but there's been so much catastrophe around the wrong bet, like so much carnage out there. And the other thing is physical media. I think the major misstep on the part of video games, it's not so much, and I know it's expensive, I know it's not great for the environment, and there's all kinds of built-in prices in it, and there's some stuff that's tough around it business wise. I get it, but in terms of visibility and profile, that's a huge misstep, because now there are all of these temples to this medium, to this art form, are drying up. All these stores are going away and closing down, or struggling to find any kind of positioning out there. And it's really not just about acquisition of product. It's about connection to the whole creative drive around all of this stuff, and stores became the meeting point for people to go and talk about stuff. And then people that didn't know anything about it would walk past a store, or drive past a store, and see these huge displays and these huge posters. Now that's all going away, and there is none of that sort of, or a lot less of that. So support all of that stuff,
Yeah, I trying to think, maybe on one hand I can count the number of video game stores, physical ones, that are within a reasonable driving distance to me right now, whereas 5 or 6 years ago they were everywhere. Even like smaller retro stores. I mean, I got to go up into Philadelphia, I think, to find any, or even further into Pennsylvania. It's just not very common anymore, which is unfortunate, because you're right, that was the fun trip, going to a retro store and just seeing what they have, or even we used to have comic book stores around here. Those have gone away, and we have one big box, like used whatever is here, so you have a whole like collection of comic books, video games, and records, but it's kind of a Walmart of used stuff, so it's just everything's thrown in there. I think the specialized stores, like the used video game store, was such an interesting thing to have nearby. Even walking distance was cool. Like when I was younger, we did have those kind of stores within walking distance, and they've dried up. You don't see them anymore.
I think they're going to come back. I do think they're going to come back, because there is this new generation, kids growing up, and rules like the social media bans. Spain just enacted you have to be 16 and up in Spain now. Australia banned social media for kids. Kids are growing up watching their parents having been addicted to being on their phones, and they don't want any of that. It's like, when I was a kid, I watched my mom smoke, and I asked her to give me a cigarette to try it, and it was disgusting, and I never smoked again after that. And I think there's a lot of learning that children are picking up on, that this obsession that we all have, that we're all, and I'm not better than that. I'm terminally online. Everybody can see all the stuff I tweet all the time, but I feel like there is this analog move that's happening, and it's going to slowly build and build and grow. I just want the industry to pivot to that. And I know I sound like an angry old man, but it's not about wanting to go back. It's about reaching more people. And if people keep wondering if we've hit the ceiling on sales, and we look at the success on Call of Duty and say, well, we can't sell more than that, or Grand Theft Auto, we can't sell more, we can't reach more people than that. And I think that's bullshit. I think what we have to do is go to where people are and physicalize it a little bit more, and keep telling the story in different ways. And I think we have leaned too far in the direction of hyper specialization and being too i- inside baseball with these things, and tribal around, liking something and then dogpiling on them. And so you couple these live service bets, which suck up all the oxygen, and the lack of a huge, prominent, beautiful events like E3 that are a problem, and filled with lots of challenges. G4, again, lots of challenges, but all of these different things have conspired to video games feeling like, John, a little bit like they did in the 90s when I was pitching the show, saying, I know, not everybody's talking about this stuff, but they will, because it's the best content that exists out there, and it's just going to get better and better. And it feels a little bit like that. I feel like regular people that are busy, they are watching freaking Housewives of something, and they're not thinking about how much fun they could be having in a Zelda game, or how awesome Metroid Prime 4 is, irrespective of the fact that it's not better than 1, and that's the challenges that the game industry is facing right now.
Yeah, the funny thing with social media is you may think a game's really good until you go online in social media and see what everyone else is saying, and it's happened quite a bit. There's a game I really
I see that around Spider-Man 2. It's unbelievable.
Spider-Man 2, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
People are like beating that thing down. You think that's like a 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10 game or something if you go online. But
that's a masterpiece game
I really liked when I was younger was Jedi Outcast. Turns out it's not a very good game, apparently, and I did not know that. I thought it was a great game.
I just loved it. We just ran the Judgment Day episode this last week. It's the last one that we ran on our channel. We reviewed Jedi Outcast. I gave it a 9.5 back then. It blew my freaking mind. It was absolutely incredible.
Love that
I want to
game.
play that again.
Yeah, but then I look online and it's like a 6 out of 10. I'm like, oh, whoops. Thought that game was good. I think that happens for a lot of people, though, and I think social media does influence quite a bit, obviously, in terms of pushing people to thinking maybe a game is bad when maybe they really liked it. That's the way it goes. But there's a lot of noise out there, and it's unfortunate. Sometimes it is good to just put the phone away for an hour. I said this recently. You know what? The challenge should be put the phone in airplane mode. Check on the kids, the wife, whoever, significant other, whatever. Make sure everything's okay. Go in your room, turn the lights off, phone on airplane mode, and just play a game for an hour quietly. Even in the middle of the night, when kids are asleep or something, 9 o'clock at night, spend an hour and just play a game, lights out, nice and quiet, and see what you think.
It does feel, and this is manufactured because it's all attention that everybody's trying to fight for, including, 24/7 news. But it does feel like the world is moving faster than ever. And there's like life-altering decisions being made by powerful people like every 2-3 minutes. It's like, and if you do put your phone away for an hour and you come back and it's just like it really, and part of that is that's the job of everybody, and they're trying to find some way to monetize their tweets or whatever. But it's kind of crazy. And you're a parent and I'm a parent, and I'm sure that part of your obsession with being up on all of this is that you're worried about what kind of world your kids are inheriting, as I am too. It's like, holy crap. Yeah.
Yep. Feel like I got to be aware of what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years, but I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years. So I might just be spinning my wheels anyway. And that's why sometimes I go, you know what, maybe I don't need to look at Twitter X right now. Maybe that'll go away and I'll play Neo 3 or something else right now.
When do you want the next generation of PlayStation and Xbox? I think Xbox has got at least one more machine in them. But when do you want them?
When do I? Oh, so that's interesting. When do I want? I mean, I it's funny you say that. When do I want them? I personally want the next PlayStation in 2027 because it'd be fun to cover. But no, most likely I'm thinking PlayStation's like 2028. And now I think Xbox might actually be 2027, which is interesting. But I like new hardware. I do. The thing I'm more interested in out of Sony, even than their next console, is this handheld that's getting thrown around.
Yeah, me too.
Would love to see what they come up with there, because I think Sony has that Sony touch, if you will, or they will at least try to make it look sleek and modern rather than just go, well, it's functional, so put some handles on it, and if it's as big as a, the huge tablet looking thing, I know they kind of do that with the Portal, but
Yeah.
I don't even think I think Sony was like, whatever, just split a controller in half. Here's a little Xperia tablet, just slap it in there. We'll see what happens. And it did
I don't
well.
think you're ever going to have an interview with their hardware people.
No. I've come to terms with that one. But I would assume that they would go, you know what, we'll make something that's not the size of the Vita, but more in line with that philosophy of we're going to
Yes.
make it look like a premium Sony device. Probably expensive.
Do you remember how incredible the PSP was? Like, I love the Vita too. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
I love it. It was a great level up. But do you remember how earth-shatteringly cool the PSP was
Oh,
when
yeah.
it came out?
Oh yeah, because
I
it
mean,
was it was next to the DS, and the DS, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, cool system, obviously, great system.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
2 screens, and the visuals were better than the Game Boy Advance. But man, when that PSP showed up, and you were seeing
Yep.
some games on there, you're like, wait a minute, this thing is a portable PS2. I think.
Yeah.
You're in your mind.
It was the future.
Crazy that this is portable.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, you look at the device, it looked like a video game system, but it also did have that sleek nature to it, like I was saying, and you had
Yeah.
little discs that you dropped, the UMDs, and it was futuristic, man. It was cool stuff.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I loved it so much. I love handhelds. I always have. I have the Sega Nomad, but with that PSP, like, I was so blown away by it. I pitched it as a show. I said to Rogers, to our partners up here in Canada, I said, I think we could make a half-hour TV show just on the PSP, just on all the cool stuff with the UMDs and the movies. It didn't go, but
I would have watched that.
I haven't. I don't think there was ever any other singular machine where I've drafted up a pitch for a full show on it, but it freaking blew me away. So I hope the PSP brand isn't done. I hope that they come back with PSP again. I think that would be cool.
One of my favorite shows back then on G4 was Cinematech. And the reason for that is because I couldn't get all the games. So I just wanted to watch the games to see what they were exactly. And that was the first time I remember seeing direct feed capture of these games. Because it was just such a crazy concept of being able to record the games with gameplay and put on TV. So that PSP show would have right up my alley because I wasn't getting the PSP at launch. I was observing the PSP at launch. So I'd have been, I was really interested in it, but I also understood it was going to be that big Christmas gift or something that I was going to ask for in high school or something. So that would have been cool. That would have been the show I would have kept up on and been like, all right, let's see what's going on with the PSP that I'm hopefully going to get this year or something for Christmas.
Where are you based? What part of the world are you in?
Oh, I'm in Northeast. I'm in Maryland.
Okay. And where did you shop? Was it EB Games or GameSpot or what was your store back then?
It's funny, back then, the mall near me that's still around, like the mall is still here, which is crazy. It's still kind of busy too. I know malls are like going away. This one is like one of the bigger ones on the East Coast, I think. And they had an EB game, two EB games and one GameStop in the same mall back then.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
It was the weirdest
The mother load. Do they have any of that left?
They had a KB Toys, and then they also had an arcade in the back. So this mall was crazy. Wow. Now there's just one GameStop left.
Okay. Yeah, I hear they're closing up GameStops all over the place right now. And then so there's EB Games I'm in Canada. EB Games is now Canadian in Canada. It's got a Canadian owner, and they're trying to reboot the business up here in some interesting ways. And our partner PMP Games, that's working with us on all of our content, they've got stores in the Winnipeg area, and I really hope that they're able to expand and keep growing. But they've been an incredible ally because they sell all this retro stuff as well, and so there's a lot of synergy with all of our classic material. They're just wonderful partner.
So I had to watch, sadly, as it dwindled down from to 2 EB Games, 1 to 0 to the arcade going away to now just the GameStop store there, which the GameStop store is pretty busy. It's also one of their retro stores, so they do keep some older games in there, but it's not like a major selection or anything.
Yeah,
but it's
dude. I hope
there. So
I hope that through this conversation, we can inspire some of your viewers to get the hell out of their houses and go to an arcade or a retro store. I was at a movie yesterday, the new Sam Raimi movie, which was really good, Send Help. And it was a cheap day. It was Tuesday. And I missed the critic screening because I was editing last week. And but I went, and it was cheap day, cheap popcorn, everything. Like they're trying to get people into the theater. And there was like 20 people in this beautiful theater, and the screen was awesome, like very impressive. But it felt, honestly, it felt like I was walking through a tomb in this movie
Mhm.
theater. You know, I felt like I was in this, like you could almost see the Last of Us like shrubbery overgrowing, you know, like taking, like nature claiming it because humans had stopped going to it. And I had never felt that before, but it's like, what the hell, man? Where is everybody?
Yeah.
Hello,
It's
hello, you know?
it's kind of sad. Like there's a batting cages, a little mini arcade kind of thing near here, a mini
Yeah,
golf. And I go, the arcades are so different now. They're leaning more towards being a Dave and Buster's rather than a traditional arcade. It's
yeah,
kind of a
yeah.
shame.
We
But I
we
go
have some
there
of
and
those.
they had some arcade units that were just broken down and they've been
Yeah,
there for a while because occasionally I'll go by and they're still broken. They had like an
yeah,
original gauntlet machine there and stuff. But one
yeah.
day I'm walking by and I look and they have all the way in the back corner, it's an old Ninja Turtles cabinet,
Cool.
like one of the original, like dark green, kind of busted up looking. But I'm looking by, I'm trying to look at it, and it's not on or anything. And the guy's walking around, and I'm like, Does this work?" He's like, "I don't know. I don't know."
Oh
It just
man.
keeps going. It's like, man, really? It's like that, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Sheesh. I would look at this and immediately go, "This is incredible. Can I buy this?" And the guy's like, I don't know what it is. I don't know."
Yeah.
So they've apparently had it there forever, and they just never thought to get it looked at or fixed or anything.
That's so sad, man. I mean, it really is this underline of convenience has been marvelous in a lot of ways, but it really has impacted how we connect. It really has.
Oh, the arcade
And
back in the day? Yeah, that one guy who
well,
knew all the
all
Mortal
of it
Kombat
though.
fatality codes?
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, all of it. You know, all of it. Like the way we get our information, like everything. Like like and you know, we're not the same generation here, but we do remember a time before all of this
Mhm.
convenience,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we remember the efforts it took to acquire things and to go out and to, you know, read catalogs and think maybe I'll save the money to be able to buy that at some point. And now it's click away. Everything's a click away. And I don't know, man. Yeah, it's really important. That community is really important, and keeps getting re-underlined. And I know you have a great community. I read some of the comments in your videos. I'm a fan of you. You're a terrific, terrific host, and I like the way that you put all your stuff together. And so when you reached out to have me on, I was like, of course, I'd love to chat with you. But I also like the community that you build. You have thoughtful people and insightful commentary, and it's not rage, you know, it's not all coming from a place of just like despondency and
Yeah.
everything sucks and everybody's you know, trying to steal our money. And because I know there's an element to that out there, and I feel like there's validity to feeling a little pissed off about some of these huge corporations and stuff. But I can tell you, like, even at these huge corporations, the people that are being employed to try to build things to entertain us, they're not there, you know?
Mhm.
They're not thinking, how do we scam people?" They're thinking, how do we make people have fun? You know, how do we
Right.
brighten some time here for people, you know? But we don't get to talk to them or hear them like we used to be able to, you know? And
Yeah.
that's another misstep on the games industry's part as well, that dehumanization. So all we're ever talking about are these abstract products instead of the ambition to get them to us, you know?
Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me today, Victor. It went a
Loved it.
little over time there, but I appreciate you
Yeah.
sticking around. It was a
So
good conversation.
I like to talk. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's a good
I
conversation.
like to
Did
have this connection, John. You saved me from my basement, dude.
you wanna let the good people out there and let them know what you got going on?
Well, I'm covering the games industry and other entertainment industries every day on our YouTube channel is kind of the mothership, but I slice up stuff on other platforms as well. But youtube.com/EPNTV. I stream on a regular basis. I found that to be an incredibly. I don't, do you do any game streaming? Do you ever play stuff with your people, John?
Not as much. Usually I'll do like recording and then just post thoughts on stuff when I get a chance. Or
It's
sometimes I'll have a lot of B-roll footage that I've recorded that just kind of gets thrown into news shows and stuff.
You should do it. You should do it at least
Yeah.
once a week. It's really fun. I totally encourage. I know it's a different discipline. It's a
Mhm.
different way to approach all of that. And I know you're busy making all your stuff, but I don't know. I find it so gratifying, and I learn stuff from the people that watch the content all the time. And I always have a good time. And I dissecting these games. I have to play them to review them, right? So it's really
Yeah.
kind of fun to play them with people. So I'm doing that all the time. Uh, Trying to get the podcast going again, Vic's Basement Podcast. I do have one coming up, and I'm on all the socials. I'm around doing what I've been doing. My job has not changed. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been very, very lucky
Hey,
and
still enjoying
very
it.
appreciative.
So.
And I love it. Yeah, there's this is never dull. There's always
Never dull.
something cool to talk about.
Well, appreciate it. We get that podcast spun up again. Let me know. I'll come by. More than happy.
I would
to
love to have you. That would
come
be
over
great.
there. So make sure you guys check out Victor Lucas down below. I got him linked down below in the description. As always, appreciate it there, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.